I'm 71 years old, and only now can I say this honestly. Fear held me back. I didn't see it while it was happening. I didn't call it fear. I called it being careful, responsible, sensible. But sitting here now, with most of my life already behind me, I can finally name it. Fear was the quiet companion that walked beside me for decades. I'm not sharing this to judge myself. At this age, judgment feels pointless. I'm sharing it because time has thinned, and when time thins, the truth doesn't have anywhere left to hide. My days are slow now. Not peaceful, just slow. I wake up early, even when I don't need to. My body seems to think morning is important, even if the world no longer expects much from me. I sit at the kitchen table with my coffee and let the silence settle. Silence has a different weight when you've lived long enough. From where I sit, I can see the backyard. It hasn't changed much, the same fence, the same patch of grass. I've watched it age the way I have, quietly, without ceremony. But when you're young, fear doesn't feel like fear. It feels like common sense. You're told to be careful, to think ahead, to avoid mistakes. Those are good lessons as far as they go, but no one tells you how easily caution can turn into confinement. I grew up in a time when stability mattered more than satisfaction. You didn't chase feelings. You chased security. You found something that worked and you held on to it, even if it never quite fit. Man, so that's what I did in my 20s. I had choices. Not endless ones, but enough. Opportunities that made my heart beat a little faster. Ideas that felt risky but alive. I noticed them. I just didn't trust them. I told myself there would be time later to explore. Time later to take chances. Right now, I needed to build something solid. Later became my favorite excuse. And in my 30s, life started to look settled from the outside. A job that paid the bills. A routine. People who depended on me. That dependence felt important. It made my caution feel justified. Any time I felt restless, I reminded myself of what I could lose. That was usually enough to quiet the feeling. Fear is very good at listing consequences. It rarely mentions what it costs you slowly. I married. We built a life that worked. That's the word I always used. Worked, it functioned, it was respectable. We didn't fall apart, we showed up, we did what was expected, but even then, I avoided hard conversations. Not arguments, exactly. Just the deeper talks about what we wanted, what we were afraid of, what we might regret. I worried those conversations would open doors I wasn't ready to walk through, so I kept them closed. Hemdian at work, I stayed where I was valued, not where I was curious. I said no to changes that felt uncertain. I watched others take risks, fail sometimes, succeed sometimes, and I told myself they were braver than me, or maybe just less responsible. That story made it easier to stay put. The slow cost of fear didn't announce itself. It crept in. I missed events because it felt safer to stay home. I delayed decisions because waiting felt less dangerous than choosing wrong. I told myself I was patient. What I didn't see was how much of my life was passing while I stood still. Then by my 40s and 50s, I was known as someone steady, reliable. People trusted me. That trust mattered to me. I didn't want to disrupt it by changing too much. Inside, though, there was a quiet narrowing. My world became smaller, not because opportunities disappeared, but because I stopped reaching for them. Fear doesn't slam doors. It gently encourages you to stop opening them. I remember specific moments now that seemed harmless at the time. An invitation I declined because it felt awkward. A move I didn't make because it wasn't guaranteed. A feeling I didn't express because it might complicate things. Each one felt reasonable on its own. Manda together, they shaped a life that was safe and incomplete. The turning point came later than it should have. It often does. It wasn't dramatic. It was a loss. Someone close to me died, not suddenly, but definitely. And death has a way of stripping excuses bare. And standing there afterwards, sorting through their things, I realized how boldly they had lived. Compared to me. Not recklessly. Just openly, they had tried things, said things, risked being wrong. I felt admiration. And then something heavier. Land. I wondered how much of my own life had been guided by avoiding discomfort instead of seeking meaning. Tand. That question stayed with me. After retirement, the structure that had supported my caution fell away. No deadlines, no meetings, no external reasons to stay busy, just time. A lot of it, that's when fear became harder to ignore. Without tasks to hide behind, I started noticing how hesitant I was to do even small things differently. How often I chose the familiar over the fulfilling. I also noticed how quiet my relationships had become. Not empty, just shallow. Years of avoiding difficult conversations had trained people to expect a certain version of me. Calm, agreeable, uncomplicated. Plenderly. They didn't know how much was missing. Neither did I for a long time. Mind, what can't be fixed now is not the lack of adventure or achievement. I don't regret not being famous or wealthy or extraordinary. What can't be fixed is the way fear kept me from being fully present in my own life. And I can't go back and take the risks that required a younger body or a more flexible future. I can't revisit moments where a single honest sentence might have changed the direction of a relationship. Time doesn't negotiate. Dendi at Basarsan, fear feels different. It's still there, but it's quieter, less convincing. When you don't have much left to lose, the arguments it makes start to sound thin. And I see now that fear promised safety, but it never promised fulfillment. And fulfillment doesn't come from avoiding loss. It comes from engaging while you can. Loneliness in old age isn't always about being alone. It's about looking back and realizing how often you chose comfort over connection. I don't blame my younger self. I was doing what I thought was right. I was protecting what I had. But protection can become a cage if you never step outside it. Lan, if you're listening to this, I'm not here to tell you to be fearless. That's not realistic. Fear is part of being human. I only wish I had understood sooner that fear shouldn't be the one making all the decisions. Man, you don't need to conquer it. You just need to notice when it's quietly running your life. Man, I spent years waiting for fear to disappear before acting. It never did. It just learned to sit more comfortably beside me. Now, at this age, I do small things differently. I speak a little more honestly. I take small chances when they appear. I let myself feel disappointed instead of pretending it doesn't matter. It doesn't undo the past. It just makes the present feel more alive. My remaining time is limited. I know that. There's a clarity that comes with that knowledge. Fewer illusions, fewer reasons to pretend. And if this meant something to you, you don't have to change everything. Just notice where fear is quietly advising you to wait, to stay small, to remain comfortable. And I waited most of my life. I'm 71 now, and I finally see how much fear held me back. I can't change that, but I can sit here, tell the truth, and hope that naming it gives this last chapter a little more honesty than the ones that came before.